couldn't afford to make rent one weekend. This international design conference was coming to San Francisco. I had $1,000 at the bank. And Joe, my roommate, tells me, well, the rent's $1,150. So I realized I have a math problem here. What am I going to do? This international design conference is there. So coming to San Francisco, we said, well, what if we just turned our house into a bed and breakfast for the conference? I didn't have any beds, but Joe had some air beds. So we pulled the air beds out of the closet, and we called it the Air Bed and Breakfast.
But we wanted to solve another problem that I really felt acutely online. We wanted to bring collections, which was something that I always did as a kid, and put them on the internet. I was a big collector as a kid. I collected butterflies and I collected stamps. And it felt like a few years ago you could put anything online you wanted. You could put up your photos, you could write a blog, but there was nothing to put these collections up. And I think that collections, even if we don't think of them as the kid kind of collections, even if we think of them as your favorite books or your favorite movies, they tell a lot about exactly who you are. Collections are a way of people organizing the world around them, making sense of it. And you don't collect things arbitrarily. You think meticulously, how am I going to put this together? Who am I going to share it with? What does it say about me?
If you look at the history of successful startups in the world, there are only a couple that have started off with an idea and ended up with that idea. Mm-hmm. For us, we were doing a check-in app, and the check-in app let you check in at places that you went, like coffee shops or bars, whatever.
Like similar to Foursquare?
Yeah, similar to Foursquare, exactly. But at the time, we decided, unlike any other check-in service, we were going to let you add a photo along with a check-in. Mm-hmm. We said, listen, the check-in space is really difficult. People don't want another check-in app. Let's switch this around. So we kind of demoted the check-in and we promoted the photo, and we said, no, you start with a photo and then optionally you can add a location. And it turns out that that was one of the most popular features. And that was really the genesis of the structure of Instagram. And of course, on top of that, we added filters that was, I think, a breakthrough for us, realizing that we wanted to make photos better for people.
As I had spent the last 6 or 7 years working in finance, which was an incredible experience from a learning perspective. I learned about the world, I learned about business, I learned how the world actually worked then. But then, in order to change the world, I wanted to be in an environment that would allow me to really think big and to experiment. I started Indiegogo because I wanted to democratize fundraising. We wanted to create a fundraising ecosystem where the factors that should matter in your success actually do matter. It's work ethic and how responsive your community is and how much they want to see the actual idea come to life. Indiegogo is an incredible incubation platform for ideas, which help ideas that are community validated rise to the top.
It seemed like the internet was going to need a new front page, a broader one, because content was being created, even back in 2005, by such a broad array of sources that no one source could really lay claim to that unless it aggregated everything.
We were basically going to take the mechanisms of Delicious, the most popular things are the things that lots of people are submitting, and combine that with Slashdot, which actually had good content.
Paul crystallized that phrase during the discussion. He was like, that's it. You guys need to build the front page of the web.
The story of like how I had the idea for Groupon was just, well, we know that group buying is one potential business model for this. We know that people have been trying to do, group purchasing campaigns using the points where you get a group of people together that try to negotiate with a local business in order to get a discount. Why don't we just go out and do that? And why don't we do like a local version of Woot? Like Woot was a website that we all liked, and this deal a day thing really seemed compelling. So that's what we did.
So I worked in dispatch for a long time. Like the majority of my career has been about real-time, low latency, high transaction systems around moving information, and it comes down to this very simple concept, which is someone broadcasts a message, and those interested in it follow it. And that's it. So ambulances constantly broadcast where they are and what they're doing, and dispatchers and call centers follow where those ambulances are. It's really, really simple.
I had this idea one night for TaskRabbit, and basically I was still at IBM at the time. It was February of 2008, so over 3 years ago. We were living in Boston, and it was snowing outside, and my husband and I were sitting in our kitchen getting ready to go out to dinner. We'd called a cab to come pick us up. And we realized we were out of dog food for Kobe here. And we're kind of like, wouldn't it be nice if there was just a place online we could go, say we needed dog food, name the price we're willing to pay. We're certain there's probably someone in our own neighborhood that'd be willing to help us out, maybe even someone at the store, like right at that second. Like, how can I connect with that person that's already at Safeway, getting their own dog food?
About 3.5 years ago, I was working on Justin TV. I was one of the co-founders of Justin TV. And I discovered that the content that I personally found compelling was the gaming content. And so I thought, is there a way to take this section of content and really support it to the hilt? Because it seemed a little bit crazy, right? People sharing their video game experience doesn't on the surface seem like something that's going to be super compelling. But I knew as a user, it was really compelling to me. And it made me think it could be compelling to other people too. So we started working on that, and there was such a phenomenal response from the community that it really made sense to say, hey, this isn't just a piece of this larger website. We need its own brand, we need its own place to live because it really is its own community, needs its own place.
Well, you couldn't upload your image and share it out to as many people as you wanted. And the image sharing sites at the time had this business model that really makes no sense to me, but the model was that I'm going to upload this image and then share it out, and then if it gets a certain amount of views or uses a certain amount of bandwidth, then it'll get taken down. And then it'll get replaced with an image that says, upgrade to Pro and get unlimited bandwidth and stuff like that. But it doesn't make any sense to me, because if an image is so popular that it's getting all of these views and it's circulating around the internet, it's going viral, why would you take that down?
Yeah, it's almost like you're capping your upside as the brand who's hosting it.
Right. And then you're only trying to monetize that one person who uploaded it. That upgrade to Pro message is now only useful for the one person, but there are thousands of people seeing it.
The blogosphere was really pretty mature. It had matured, though, to a place that was really designed for editorial publishing. So kind of everything after movable type had a title, several paragraphs of text, a footer, a permalink page with comments. All blogs really took the same form, which is great for that type of publishing. But something that I really wanted out of my website, out of my blog, was something much more free form, something much less verbose, where I could share the things that I was working on, the things that I was just kind of coming across on the web, be it like a funny YouTube video or a photo of something I just took. Yeah. And the tools at the time really weren't built for that.
Well, I was a member of an online art community called Dreamless, where artists around the world would be just collaborating on things. And my project that I kind of added to the community was that I'm seeing all these artists creating amazing things, and I was like, we need to get this off the computer and actually be able to have these things in some kind of printed format. And so it was actually prints and T-shirts in the beginning. And every small town in America has a screen printer. I used to make T-shirts for my skate team. For art projects in high school, I would make T-shirts, and I knew how easy it is to produce them. So I was just like, post your designs. I'll make the best ones into things that we can all have. And it was just like a creative contribution to this community that already exists.
Well, it was kind of just a side project of mine.
What year did that start?
It probably started in 2000 or 2001. And it was just being bored at work and wanting something, wanting to build something, and seeing a lot of people, a lot of my friends and a lot of other companies start building things. And New York at that time was changing very quickly, and City Search, the big product at the time, wasn't able to keep up with it. I'm like, hey, I can probably build a better version of City Search for downtown New York. And we'll let people add their own reviews and add their own venues. And, that was a big idea at the time.
Back in 2000 what?
This is, probably 2000, 2001.
Dude, that was a huge idea. No one was thinking about that stuff.
Yeah, but then I was just executing it at my desk off a little Microsoft Access database with ASP pages. So, it's it was enough to get my friends excited about it.
Yeah.
But that stuff parlayed itself into, early dodgeball stuff, like some of the stuff we did on mobile, and then into the Friend Finder stuff, and then into what it eventually became. Before we brought it to
the company that made Flickr, which is called Ludocorp, actually started out making a web-based, massively multiplayer game as well. So that was 2002, 11 years ago. We managed to raise a little bit of friends and family money, and we got far enough to build a prototype, and the prototype was well received, but we just couldn't, it wasn't something that was possible for us to build, because it was a pretty big, ambitious project, and it would have taken a couple of years. And so we cast around for something else to do with the technology that we had developed for the game, and that ended up being Flickr.
We had a very simple focus and idea. The goal wasn't to make a huge community site, it was to make something where you could type in someone's name and find out a bunch of information about them. So I don't know, I took a few days and just threw together Facebook and launched it on February 4th, 2004. It was just me working on it at that time. But at that point, my roommate Dustin, who hadn't had much computer programming experience at all, was like, I can help you expand it. And I'm like, that's cool, dude, but you don't know how to program. So he's like, no, it's not an issue. And he went home one weekend, bought the book Perl for Dummies, came back and was like, all right, I'm ready. And then we started getting emails from people at a bunch of other schools asking if we could launch Facebooks there. In the last tech bubble, most websites were run using these really expensive machines, which made it that you had to basically go and raise money before you could do anything. We ran the site originally for $85 a month, renting computers for the first 3 months.
It happened in January of 2005. It was up in my place in the city in San Francisco. And we were having a dinner party and people had digital cameras there, and we were taking normal digital photos as well as movies. And when we tried to share the photos, we found it very easy to share the photos with one another. But when we tried to share the movies, we tried to email it back, but it just kept getting rejected, bounced back. We tried to upload, and people have different video types, video codecs that you have to download, different software. So we sort of took a look at, with all the digital cameras now, with phones being able to take movies, that this was going to be more and more of a problem for other people. And we try to make and simplify this process to make it as easy as possible to share these videos.
But we think, far too much media focuses on trivial stuff, celebrity news, gossip, stuff that doesn't actually, help people be better citizens or understand what's going on. And that's when we started Upworthy. We really started with a focus on just publishing stuff about that important topics.
I mean, Uber was basically a side project that pretty much was inspired by being stranded on the side of the street on a Friday night. And the next morning on Saturday afternoon, I would go kind of figure out how it would work, right? But I realized I didn't have enough time to do it. So fortunately, my friend Travis Kalanick took over, and he's running it full time. So it's kind of my side project that's become a real company.
My co-founder and I saw that there was this big, thick book sitting on our desk, and there really wasn't a good online equivalent. There was nothing better than the old-fashioned Yellow Pages in 2004. And so that inspired us to take another look and peel back the onion and say, can you build something better? What would be better? Like, what is it missing? And the thing that we felt like it was missing was word-of-mouth recommendations. That's how we love to find local businesses, asking friends, talking to people, asking the mailman, hey, do you know a good person, whatever it is. And we thought if we could capture that information that's in everybody's heads, put it online, and allow others to search over it, that would be the ultimate way to find a local business.
I'm Ryan Hoover, I'm with Product Hunt, and Product Hunt is a website, a community where people submit links to new products, such as mobile apps, websites, hardware projects, and then everyone in the community upvotes the best stuff each day. So you have this curated feed of new and interesting products each day. Product Hunt actually started off largely based on my love for products and talking about products. And so oftentimes our conversations, at least in Silicon Valley and San Francisco, are around what's on your home screen and did you see that new app, Yo, and what do you think about that, and that kind of thing. So it largely was inspired by those conversations, and I didn't see a place in the market, any website or community around those type of products. You see it on Twitter and you see it on Hacker News and Reddit and other sites, but you don't see a platform just for new products every day. It started off as an email list, so it was very simple. It took about a half an hour to set up. And I seeded it with people I knew, founders, investors, and friends of mine, people that I respected in terms of their product sense. And from there, we invited more people in my network and also friends of friends, and it's kind of organically grown from there.
I used to work at Apple for 9 years. Basically, I managed the iPod division, created the iPod, 18 generations, and then 3 generations of the iPhone. It took some time to decompress. After running a marathon for 9 years, we wanted to just take some time. We went around the world, we traveled all around and just kind of got our head out of Silicon Valley and started really concentrating on our kids and learning about energy and learning about how we might be able to leave the world in a better place for our kids and our grandkids. We were building a green home in Lake Tahoe. My architect actually gave us a spec for the heating and cooling system. It was about $15,000. And then this $15,000 system was controlled by $350 thermostats. It's like $350 thermostats, what do these do? Cell phones are less than $350. These things got to be amazing. So give me the spec. And they give me the spec, and I was like, wait a second. This thing they're ugly. They look like computers from the 90s. They're all beige boxes. They have technology literally from the 80s inside of them, or 90s. I'm like, why am I paying for such junk? I said, I think I can design a better one. We decided to take all of the things that we've known in terms of building cell phones and portable devices and apply that expertise to a space of energy savings that we think is really important, that could help to reduce your energy bills and save the
My
world.
co-founder is a glass artist, and he sells these beautiful glass faucets, and he was selling one for $2,000, and all he had in his pocket was his mobile phone. He couldn't accept the credit card from the woman who wanted to buy this faucet, and she didn't have a checkbook, and she obviously didn't have $2,000 of cash, so he lost the sale. And we were discussing this, and you know, we have these general purpose computers next to our ears, and
would be an iPhone 4 or something.
The iPhone 4 or an Android phone or a BlackBerry or whatnot. But yet he wasn't able to accept that credit card. So we wondered why that was, and we answered it by building this system.
I think the fundamental premise of Snapchat is that it's better and more fun if you delete everything except the things that are really important and you want to save. And currently the way that a lot of technologies work, that they save everything and then you delete the things that make you feel uncomfortable.
You had to get like one thing to, one service that was like a website you could upload your stuff to, and then you had to get another app that was like, that would sync things across your computers, and you get another app to back up your computer. And I'm like, as we would later tell investors, I'm like, I mean, I can't really imagine Tom Cruise in Minority Report like logging into his Gmail to like pick up the attachment he sent himself that morning, or like, forgetting his thumb drive, right? He's just up over here and just your stuff follows you around, and that's the whole point, like someone else takes care of it.
We're trying to bring back that sense of community to your neighborhood that you used to have in the old days when it was easy for you to communicate with your neighbors. And even though some online sites have tried to do this, it hasn't really gotten mainstream yet. We use social networks like Facebook to communicate with our friends and family, LinkedIn to communicate with business professionals, Twitter to find people with shared interests, but there isn't really any easy-to-use social network that helps us communicate with our neighbors. And when you start talking to your neighbors, really good things happen. So that's why Nextdoor was founded and what we're trying to do.
I would go and get dressed every morning and look in my closet and say, I'm not wearing any of this stuff. And as I was looking for ways to sell off everything I owned and every bit of space in my home to fund the company, I'm looking at a closet full of kind of nice clothes that I used to wear when I went out and didn't sit in front of my computer 18 hours a day. And I'm like, I should be able to sell this stuff.
I was on a long-haul flight straight to Singapore. It was connecting in Hong Kong to Singapore. And I ended up remembering looking at a lot of people on these touchscreen devices and thinking, why is everybody playing a game? And what happens that gaming became so quickly permeating through casual interaction with devices. And so for me, it was like, that was when it tipped that I was like, I gotta start brainstorming things about, there's something here. And the epiphany took 30 days. It was like a full month of thinking. I was mapping out, what certain game mechanics look like, what certain things you would do in a game to feel happy. So I knew that just this notion of leveling up, all the different types of leveling up, I started mapping that all out. And I started just to look at it. I sat there and I looked at that page for like probably like a full week of me just figuring out what did this mean. And then I realized, and it came to me, I was like, we need to create a structure that other games can build on top of. So the idea started off like a OpenFaint, where you have achievements that can be recorded and make leaderboards easier. And then I started doing research and I realized that OpenFaint had already done this. And so then it came to me, why don't we just make it super, super, super simple? Why don't we just look at the achievement and look at how we can augment that achievement? I was like, well, real rewards, right? Real tangible things, because the virtual reward element was already covered by so many companies. I was like, why hasn't real rewards happened yet? And then the model quickly became, I was like, well, if I'm gonna be giving out real rewards, can't brands do that too? And can't that be a business where it's an advertising type of a model? And then that's where it started snowballing. So
I've been a reader since I was a kid. I discovered the Hardy Boys in the 2nd grade, went through all those, and was definitely a reader all the way until I got to college. I went to Stanford, and it was a little academically challenging, so I kind of dropped reading for pleasure. So I think coming out of that, I really wanted to get back to reading. It was purely a selfish thing. The site really started 6 years ago in my living room when I quit my day job at a Silicon Valley startup and decided to do a social network for books. Because I'd been working in social networking before, and I could see that social was going to be a better method of discovery for all kinds of online content than anything else. And I really was just, selfishly, I wanted to see my friends' bookshelves without having to go to all their living rooms and walk in and check them out. Because I think that's really interesting and valuable information.
I really started eBay because I wanted to create a place where individuals or regular people could do business with one another in an efficient market. Prior to eBay, people on the web, especially the electronic commerce folks, were really focused on how do you sell more products to more people and just increase corporate profits. What I wanted to do was create an efficient market where regular people, where individuals could participate in that efficient market on a level playing field and actually get a benefit out of being out of that in that market.
And some of y'all might know, about 5 years ago, I was an analyst at a hedge fund, and I was in Boston, and I was tutoring my cousins in New Orleans remotely. And I started putting the first YouTube videos up really just as kind of a nice to have, just kind of a supplement for my cousins, something that might give them a refresher or something. And as soon as I put those first YouTube videos up, something interesting happened. Actually, a bunch of interesting things happened. You have this situation where now they can pause and repeat their cousin. Now they can, without feeling like they're wasting my time. They could, if they have to review something that they should have learned a couple of weeks ago or maybe a couple of years ago, they don't have to be embarrassed and ask their cousin. They can just watch those videos. If they're bored, they can go ahead. They can watch it at their own time, at their own pace. And probably the least appreciated, I guess, aspect of this is the notion that the very first time that you're trying to get your brain around a new concept, the very last thing you need is another human being saying, "Do you understand this?" And that's what was happening with the interaction with my cousins before, and now they could just do it kind of in the intimacy of their own room.
And I think what we've seen is like we want people to learn concepts by discovering, basically. They go through things, they mess it up on their own, or they learn by doing correctly. I think there's a lot of people that have done research into this. Nicholas Negroponte and the OLPC project, for instance, like airdropping laptops into Africa and seeing if people can become literate in 8 or 9 months, sort of by discovering these concepts on their own. I find that that's the way the best people have learned to program. Right? You talk to the best developers, they hit a wall, they learned how to fix things. They got frustrated, they found a way. And I think we wanted to create that kind of a series of aha moments where like you were amazed by what you were doing as opposed to like being bored watching a video or sitting in a college lecture.
Well, I wasn't trying to get in the shoe business when I went to Argentina. I was actually just on a vacation. And when I was there, I met some people doing volunteer work. And specifically, they were doing what they called a shoe drive, where they would go around and collect slightly used shoes from wealthy families in Buenos Aires and take them to children who needed them outside the city. And I was really touched by this, but I felt that there wasn't a very sustainable model because they were completely dependent on donations. And my background was purely entrepreneurial, and so I wanted to do something to help them and help the kids get more shoes, but I didn't want to start a charity. So the idea I came up with, almost over 4 years ago now, was instead of looking to charity to solve this problem, what if we looked to business? And what if I started a for-profit shoe company where every time I sold a pair of shoes, I could give a pair away, 1 for 1. And that way there'd be no formulas, no percentages, just very simple. You buy a pair of our shoes, and we give one to a child that needs a pair. And we started 4 years ago, and that's still what we do.
That's right. Yeah, I was having all the, I had a small investment fund. I was investing in startups, and I remember I had coffee with one investor, and he said, "Oh, I got this great hot deal, and we should move on it before anyone else finds out about it." And I was like, "Really? 2007? It still works like that? Like you can use proprietary information to sort of get some kind of advantage? It doesn't make sense." And sorry, this was 2010. And so I talked to Nivi, and I said, "Look, I know a bunch of investors. I do deals, so let me just take my deal flow and start sharing it." So we took 25 investors and we started sending out, just emails, and then we switched to MailChimp, then we added Wufoo, and then 9 months later we started coding.
So HomeJoy has been around for just under 2 years. We started in July of 2012, and basically that's the month where my brother and my co-founder, Aaron, he approached me with a problem he had, which was, I'm trying to find a house cleaner and I can't find one, and my place is a mess. So let's try to fix it.
We thought, okay, we want to build something for us, like the founding team, the core team. And so we said, like, what do we do all the time? And we literally sat around thinking, like, well, what do we do all the time? And I said, like, well, I play a lot of video games. Like, we play a lot of games, but we were already having like pretty good experience with games. Like, there's already more great video games than we have time to play with. So like, we didn't feel the need to improve that. Like, all right. Well, we spent a lot of time on social stuff, on Twitter and Facebook and things like that, but that was already felt like a pretty good experience. Like, we didn't really need to improve that. But the stuff that we wanted and we spent a lot of time with that we thought was a terrible experience in 2007 was productivity stuff. Where, like, every time we interact with productivity, it just feels old and stupid and doesn't quite match our lifestyle anymore. And we really want something to kind of be our external brain, make something to make us smarter. And so that was the thinking.
I grew up in Sweden. I had access to all this broadband. It was so obvious to me after getting Napster, Kazaa, and all these services that this is the way that people want to consume music. And the more I started researching it, it actually turned out that there was 500 million people that consume music that way. And at the same time, musicians were struggling and they can't make money out of music anymore, so they keep doing it for touring and they kept doing all these things. And for me at the time, it was quite obvious that, and when we started Spotify, this is in 2006, iTunes still sold DRM track. They were copyright protected songs. You couldn't play them anywhere. The quality was 160 kilobits. And at the same time, I could go to a Pirate Bay or Kazaa and download the same song pretty much as fast in lossless quality and with no protection whatsoever. So it was obvious to me that for the first time in history, the pirated product was actually a lot better than the one you could buy. So no wonder why people used pirated services. So what we tried to do with Spotify, and the goal was to create a service that was actually better than piracy. It was simpler, it's easier for people to discover and share music. It's really all that.
It empowers people, it gives them the tools to monetize their skills and resources and talent. When we think about the marketplace, at the side of the sellers, we're thinking about both people that are looking to be up and running and test their skills to see if they can actually monetize them. And we're also looking for people that want to turn this hobby, moonlighting, side income into a full-fledged business. And on the side of the buyers, we're looking to serve individuals that are, wanting to get a very personalized service. That could be a funny video that you can buy as a present for your Facebook friends, but it could be businesses looking for professional services, like small businesses in need for graphic designers, programmers, and so forth. So for both of them, we would like to see Fiverr as the go-to place.
I wanted to be a filmmaker when I was a kid, but I found it really hard to do. I bought a bunch of I bought a video camera. I didn't buy editing software because nobody buys software when they're in 8th grade. They can just download it and it was fine, whatever. And I just, I got the whole arsenal of what you needed to put together a film. And I spent a summer doing that, and it was a lot of fun. And then I sort of just fell off. And I'd been programming and I'd been designing, and I guess film was always in the back of my head. And on my phone in particular, it's almost all videos. I don't shoot a lot of photos. So even before we ever built this product, I was shooting so many shorter videos. So I think totally, I was super, super, super into video and film, and I think everyone on the team is. So it definitely manifests itself in the product.
At school, I had always been the guy who would book my friends' flights, and I would always spend hours doing it. It would take me just so much time to find exactly the flights that met their needs. And so by the time that I got around graduation, I was thinking maybe it would make sense to do this from scratch. So I called up Steve, who I'd known for 5 years since he'd founded Reddit, and I pitched it to him, and he thought it was an interesting enough idea that we could get started.
It wasn't a complicated pitch. Adam basically said, I want to work on this flight search thing. And my reply was okay. He didn't have to explain that flight search is a difficult thing to do online right now. Everybody knows it's painful. So my attitude was, well, I'm not sure if we can do it, but we'll give it our best shot.
There were a variety of code hosting platforms, but most of them were for open source. Right. So internally, people were using a lot of centralized version control systems. Things like Perforce or some of the Microsoft technologies. But it was all about locking what work could be done. right? Saying, I have control over this file. I have control over this chunk of the code, and you can't have it. So this was kind of the mainstay. It was control by preventing people from doing work. What we want to do is allow people to do the work without having to ask permission, and then propose a change and have a discussion around it. So you need what's called branching. You need to be able to say, here's the main version of what we're working on, the current version. I would like to make my own version with some improvements. Do that on your own terms, and then bring it back to the other people working on the project and have a discussion around it. And this wasn't happening a lot. This kind of collaboration, this easy experimentation, wasn't the standard 10 years ago.
I have looked at ways of launching businesses and systems for tapping into the world in novel new ways and creating more and better therapies for our grandchildren, recognizing that it's an industry that's coming to the end of its blockbuster model and ready to leap to a new curve.
What happened was I left Twitter and I immediately thought, actually I was in Aspen when it really came to me. A couple months later I was at the Aspen Ideas Festival.
We hear that's an okay conference.
And my wife will remember this. I remember I woke up at 6 in the morning and I started scribbling in a notebook, and I had this very clear vision for this product. And it was this publishing platform, and at the time I was just restarting what we call Obvious, which is the company that Twitter actually spun out of in 2006. And with Biz Stone and Jason Goldman, we had agreed to work together again, but we had no idea what we were going to do. And so I was at Aspen, and I was like, this is the thing. And it was really the encapsulation of lots and lots of ideas. And the date back to working on Blogger 15 years ago.
I think people just seem to be pretty disappointed with most of the solutions out there.
Yeah.
Like you could find pages about given questions, but they didn't feel like they were as good as they could be. So our goal is really to make each question page like the best possible resource it can be, sort of in the way that just feels like this is the right answer. It's going to be here on Quora.
I really believe that sound is, no matter if it's music, laughter, talks, conversations, speeches, like it's basically something that works really well in bringing people closer to each other. Music, it's a hugely emotional thing. Like we even, go into rooms, listen to music, and like move around together. Like it's really weird behavior. We do all these like funny things around sound, and I think it's something that brings people closer. And for me, that's part of like what's awesome about the internet at large is that it also has the possibility of bringing people closer. So on an abstract level, I think like what we're doing is always looking at ways of how people can have closer, more meaningful relationships through sound as sort of the connector.
I think the motivating force behind why we founded Zillow was really based on consumer empowerment, power to the people. Give the regular consumer the tools and the information and the wherewithal to make better and smarter decisions about buying and selling homes and mortgages. And I'm really proud of what we've accomplished to date. We've gone a long way to opening up a world of information to consumers on Zillow.com and on the mobile Zillow mobile product, which is doing very well. Try it if you haven't tried it out yet. And I guess also the other side of the marketplace is when consumers are shopping for homes and mortgages, they really need to talk to well-qualified, the right professionals with the right information. And at Zillow, we've worked really hard to build a set of tools where professionals can participate inside of the marketplace, be they realtors or mortgage brokers or what have you, and connect with consumers and help consumers get answers and actually help drive business for them as well.
In a sort of over-anonymous, over-industrialized kind of culture, you realize that local is important and face-to-face is important. And the story of Meetup is that when 9/11 happened, I talked to more neighbors in the days after 9/11 than I had in the previous years living in New York. And what that was about was realizing that there is a value to face-to-face, that we've evolved as a species to get something out of face-to-face that we don't get in virtual worlds. What's on the screen is only going to get more interesting. and more interesting and more interesting. But there is something about face-to-face too, and so it's not, you know, one is good and one is bad. But we do get something out of face-to-face that can't be replicated online.
I was definitely of the mind where you want to build it first. And what's interesting is when I first started the business, I was working with my grandfather, who was a project manager at GE and IBM from back in the day. And he wanted me to spend so much time working on the business plan and doing market research that it was just preventing me from working on the actual company and the product itself. And so I kind of put that aside and just built it. And Katerina and Stuart, the founders of Flickr, were definitely celebrities in the world that I lived in. But it was also just the design of Flickr itself, I think, set the bar so high for what a website should look like. And I just essentially sent Stuart a fan letter / love letter saying, I love what you did, here's what I did, if you would take a look at it, you know, I'd be honored. And he looked at it, and they invited me out to San Francisco to come meet with them. And so I really just, you know, showed them what I had and was who I was, and you know, it connected.
I'm about to put out this video that I spent all this time and money and effort on, and I really want to make some money from it so I can keep making more videos. I think, what if I like the idea of Kickstarter. Natalie made a bunch of money on Kickstarter. What if I just asked my fans, right? What if I asked them how, like, if you care about what I'm making, if you care, please pay me to make more. And this is different than the advertising model, right? The advertising model is all of those people, 1,000 of them are worth this much, right? That's why it doesn't work, because what if that person, one in that 1,000, really likes what I'm doing? Let's say they love my videos, they bought my records, they watch every video, they're subscribed, they follow my vlogs, they're a Facebook fan, they're following me on Twitter. I love that person. I want to give them my undying gratitude, and I love them. Thank you so much for enjoying what I make. You're the reason I'm able to make more, right? And to an advertiser, that person is worth 1/1000th of a CPM, and their attention costs less than half of a penny. And I split that with YouTube and then get $0.002 for uploading my video for them. But what if that person wants to help me? So I like that idea. What if Kickstarter were ongoing? What if you could pay someone for uploading a piece of content, digital content that would otherwise be free? Not because you won't see it if you don't pay them, but because you want to pay them so that they keep making more.
And 99 Designs was actually born out of my original company, which is called SitePoint. SitePoint is an online magazine and community for designers and developers. And one of the interesting things that started happening in this community around 2005, 2006 is that designers started making up fictional projects and then competing against each other to see who could do the best job. And they were just doing this out of a passion for graphic design, to connect with other designers all around the world, and to practice their skills and build a portfolio. So we saw this activity happening, and we monitored it closely. And what started happening organically through the SitePoint community is that members of our community jumped in and started offering cash prizes for real work. So a blogger saw these design contests happening and said, I'll give you $200 if you do a logo for my new blog. And the designers just jumped on this opportunity. The blogger had 30 or 40 different designs to choose from, and everyone walked away really happy with the process.
Basically, Tinder makes it very easy for you to meet somebody new. When you want to meet somebody new, there's always this, there's this challenge, whether it's romantic or a business relationship, where you have to put yourself out there and you feel like you're about to get rejected and you feel overwhelmed, or somebody's coming after you and you feel like, again, overwhelmed, and or you're going to have to reject on the other end. So there's this like inherent friction, and we started Tinder because we just wanted to break that down. We didn't want to create a directory of people and just sort of let everyone figure out how to connect with them. We really wanted to sort of give people a way to overcome the barriers when it comes to meeting new people, and the way we do that is simple. We find out when somebody you want to meet actually wants to meet you back, and we do so in a way that doesn't require you putting yourself out there. And it's sort of like you walk into a room and you're like, what people do is they sort of look at people in the room and say yes, no in their heads subconsciously. And then once in a while you look at somebody across the room and they look at you back, and you know you both want to meet each other. And at that moment, nobody's the aggressor, and you're both just responding to this sort of double opt-in, as we call it, and sort of a conversation progresses from there. And Tinder works very similar to that.